there. So, and Steve forgot to mention, my presentation might be a little bit shorter, so hopefully it'll give you some time to hop into another short session in the second half. So I'm talking to you about Chained Workspaces today. As he said, I'm Chriselle Love. I'm a GIS supervisor at San Jose Water Company. We serve about 1 million customers in San Jose, California, about 50 miles south of San Francisco. And you may recognize me in this picture from the FME call for presentations earlier this year. I know when I arrived at the office that all of my friends and coworkers recognized me, and one of them even turned me into a meme on Slack. So beware the camera person, lest you be used in future marketing. Anyway, so my topic today, I'm chickening out. I was going to read this in movie trailer voice, but I don't really have a good movie trailer voice. Just wanted to make a play on words here with Django Unchained. But if you're not a fan of the movie, what I'm really talking about today is FME server workflow management. So I've seen a couple talks already yesterday, I believe, on different ways of managing workflows. It's just basically when you need to run several different jobs together as part of one workflow. So I think the other two presentations I saw, they were using just desktop and chaining their workspaces together, using scripts, batch files, or having the workspaces call other workspaces afterward. Those are all great methods. This is just another way to skin the cat. If you have FME server, probably the most obvious way, and the way we were doing it before we implemented this, was just to schedule a bunch of jobs that need to happen every week around the same time in the middle of the night and hope, cross our fingers that they would work. So I will go into a little bit more about how we've improved from the schedule and cross your fingers method. And this is actually a screenshot of a real tutorial in the Knowledge Center. So if you're interested in trying out for yourself, just go search for that title and it'll walk you through a great example that you can try yourself. So the workflow that I'll be talking about today is updating our data warehouse, which needs to happen weekly. It's 6 different workspaces that update different parts of our publication database. And they're in separate workspaces because they're really independent jobs, and sometimes we need to run them individually at different intervals, but every week on Friday we do need to update them all together. And so we use this controller workspace that calls the 6 worker workspaces that are also on FME server. And this way we can manage things like dependencies, whereas before if you would just schedule them, they would just sort of run at that time no matter what happened to the other jobs. But in this case, if we have something that we want to make sure completed successfully before going on to the next step, we can control that in this controller workspace here. And the way we do that is we call the workspaces with the transformer called FME Server Job Submitter. Pretty straightforward. It's a really easy transformer to use. It takes the same parameters you would use to run the basic job on FME server, so whatever is that you would normally configure for that job, logging into server to run it. And then there's a nice parameter at the top that allows you to control dependencies. So if you say, wait for this server job to complete, no, then you're saying, while this job is processing, the workspace can go on to the next step and run the next one, essentially running the jobs in parallel with multiple engines. And here's my little joke about my passive-aggressive transformer. So you can go on without me. Go ahead and use another engine. Go on to the next step while this is running. If you set it to yes, that's basically setting up a dependency where you're saying, no, wait for this job to finish, and then move on to the next step. And that way, the nice part of that is that you're only using the same FME engine when you do set it to yes. So if you have a limited number of engines and you know you have a lot of workload to the server outside of this workflow, you can keep those other engines free. So Toadstool is very happy about that. Yay, our FME process is now in a single engine. But the nice thing is that you have a choice. If you set it to no, you can also just use however many engines you need and process things in parallel. So to look a little more closely about what we're doing in my example here, the first 4 are parallel processing. The parameter is set to no here, and that's because these 4 jobs are they're updating independent pieces of the publication database. They don't really interact with each other. It doesn't really matter if one fails. It's not going to impinge on the others in any way. And then the next two are set to wait because there are dependencies down the line. The first one is the last job that's going to be adding data to the publication database. So we don't want to move on to the next step until everything in the publication database has been updated. So that's the first spot we have it set to wait. And then the next job is where we're loading everything in the publication database into our search engine, Elasticsearch. And so again, that's the last step of the real work of the data warehouse update. And so we want it to wait there before it goes on to the last step, which is just basically reporting success or failure to us. And then this section here is the terminators that we have attached to each of the job submitters. So what these do is they force the controller job to report a failure if any of the individual jobs fail. So if we don't use the terminators, what can happen is that one of those first 5 jobs might fail, but it'll complete. Maybe the data doesn't load and it says, 0 features written, but it'll say job complete, and then it will say, okay, I'm going to go on and run the next steps, and we'll get to the end of this workspace, and it'll say job success, but does our data warehouse actually been updated? No. So what we want is for it to report a failure at any point along the way where we might have missed some data. And there's my little joke on Terminator 2, in case you missed it. And then, so just zooming back out on the complete workflow, our data warehouse is updated weekly, in particular for our flagship web app called Merlin. And so the entire workspace is really just in that green bookmark at the beginning. We're putting Merlin into maintenance mode, so taking it offline so nobody's trying to look at the data while we're updating the warehouse. And then we go right into updating the whole warehouse, updating Elasticsearch. And then in the purple bookmark, we're taking it back out of maintenance mode. And the whole thing takes about 3 hours every Friday night, and for the most part, doesn't require any effort from us. And then the last step is to use a Slack connector to shoot the results out to us in Slack so that we're not even having to monitor anything on FME server or wait for FME server emails. It's just something that we're already looking at every day is Slack. And the Slack connector, again, very easy to use. The parameters are easy as #pi. You just need an API token from your Slack account, tell it what channel you're going to post to and the message and who you're posting as, and that's it. And we get to check it out in this channel every day and just see it in our normal line of work. So that's it. Happy to answer questions, and if not, I can cut you loose to check out another session, I hope.
Yeah, if you got questions, we can use the mic because we're recording the session, so I'll come around. Anybody have any questions? Okay, just a sec.
I'm just curious what Slack is and what that does. I'm a newbie, so I don't know.
Okay, that's very complicated for me to explain. It's like a social media file sharing everything. You can direct message, and then you have these channels where you can discuss specific topics. It's sort of replaced instant messaging and like SharePoint in our group. And so we're in there all the time having private and public discussions on everything in our work. You can attach files and program bots to post things for you. So we're actually using it for a lot of managing different workflows, and our developers are actually writing some great things, some great bots that help us kind of control our servers without having to go and log into servers. So I mean, it's been a game changer for us. My manager is actually giving another talk this afternoon right after lunch on another way that we're using FME to update our customers when we have water outages, and he might also be able to mention some other things if you drop by his session that we're using Slack for.
Yeah, we use it at Safe too heavily. It's a pretty awesome tool for communicating with your team. You had a question?
Yeah. I'm just wondering if you ever considered using like the notification method, like subscribers to Workspaces when they complete, or if there's like pros and cons to like chaining Workspaces together versus just pro tips.
So we do use those. I think, and there have been some improvements to the notifications you get, but I think in the past it's just been difficult because we have a lot of FME server authors, and so when you get a job failure and it just says this job ID failed, it's not immediately clear whose responsibility it is and who needs to look at it. And so when it's everyone's job, it's no one's job, and it's easy to ignore those emails. So this way we just had a little bit more control over what was happening.
Anyone else? Okay, I have one.
Okay.
You're using the FME server job submitter a lot. Is there any part of that you'd like to see different? Or you're happy with the way it functions? That's, yes, no, or...
I think Jeff might have more to say about that. I've really only looked at this workspace so much. I mean, there wasn't a lot of pain, I don't think.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, we have a question back here. Hang on. Okay. Right. So the question, really, you're confirming what my belief is to have another ability to add more workspaces inside that main transformer. Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of looking at that there. You had like 5 or 6 FME server job submitters up there. It'd be kind of nice to just be able to build that into one transformer, have multiple import ports and a few output ports. But yeah, no, it's great.
It'd be easier to follow Don's 10 transformer rule that way, for sure.
Yeah, that would give you lots of leeway then. Anybody else? Any other questions? Who's using the FME server job submitters and chaining workspaces together? Yeah, okay, yeah, it's pretty popular and very powerful. Okay, I think we can bring it to a close then.
Great, thank you.